there he is. Look at that. And excellent. Hey, look at that. See the microphone. Look at that all nice. And with my slight green screening of it, it creates. You got like a color scheme shifter in there, right? It's
I don't
nice.
know what's going on. I don't know.
Yeah.
I look like Carrie Lake.
You do not. I can make you look like Carrie Lake if you want. I can do that. I can. Believe me. I've got the tools. Oh, yeah. What does it say? Indicted. Ah, it's so good.
Part of the merch.
Oh, good. Okay. See, you're getting it together, man. You're getting it together. I'm excited.
I'm trying. I want to build it as no matter how I can do it, I'm going to do it.
Excellent. I'm glad to help you in any way. I'll do a whole breakdown. I'll build you a set for your OBS.
It's a little worrisome that I'm stuck at putting links on my YouTube channel.
That's not that. It's no. They make it hard on purpose.
Well, I did it through Google, right?
Yeah. Oops, hold on. 30 seconds. We'll get to that. We'll talk about that on the other side of stuff. But yeah.
Russian strike in Konstantinivka.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hold on one second. Let me bring that up. And
17.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just brutal. And while
another $1 billion pledge, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's while Blinken is there.
Here we go.
Yep. Okay.
Attention, everyone.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Filling in today for Joan, live from Chicago.
Actor, comedian, and multimedia personality, Hal Sparks.
Welcome to the show, everybody. So with me right now is our dear friend Boston Brian, who does some great content. Even though he does it on TikTok, I don't hate him too much for it. But we're building him out. We're trying to build up his entire media sphere as well. We're trying to get him mega worldwide as well. So follow him everywhere.
Medium worldwide, if I can.
That sounds psychic. But I want to talk to you about what's going on in Ukraine, because you and I are both history buffs, and a lot of this stuff, at certain times looks very reminiscent, and sometimes it ties to what happened in World War II and previous to that, and years into the Holodomor and all that kind of stuff. But also sometimes it varies distinctly from it, and the variations from it, how it's different, actually I think is lost on some people as well, because modern warfare, the Russians seem to be fighting World War II over again materially, and the Ukrainians are really fighting, World War 23 in that regard. They're fighting.
You're right. It's wild to see both of them happen at the same time. When you're seeing anything from Katyusha rockets from 1942 and T-54s, and then you look at Ukraine, the advanced technology they're using on drones, and we were talking about the other day the cardboard drones. I mean, it's wild the stuff that the Ukrainians can do when they get their hands on a weapon system.
Right. And they're cardboard drones, specifically for those that don't know, if I may, the impressive part of that was that they're you can't see them with radar. So as cheap and silly as it, might seem to some people, it actually gets through the limitations of modern, warfare. It gets right around it through basically an old friend, paper. And but there was a big explosion, a big a Russian hit recently. Is it 17 dead in
17,
Konstantinivka? Yeah, Konstantinivka.
Child. There was at least one child that I saw reported.
Yeah, they hit a central market. Like, this is not even close. This is one of the things in the back and forth is that they've been, the Ukrainians and Ukrainian partisans and some Russians have been hitting areas inside Moscow or outside Moscow and around that area. But all of them are either a fireworks factory that actually made munitions, or actual sites of military stuff inside there. Even to the floor of the building they hit. When they hit one of the high rises, they hit the 3 floors that the intelligence group was working out of, including parts of what were the remnants of the IRA, the Internet Research Agency that Prigozhin started, which was the big player, Fancy Bear or whatever they were, and Apartment 21, I want to say those organizations that hacked into social media and other areas to try and make chaos in the American elections, and specifically the Ukrainians hit those floors, and the fire didn't even spread to the floors above. It was kind of amazing.
Well, the difference in what they consider military targets between Ukraine and Russia is just, I mean, and you got to think, the Russians, their weapon systems are not accurate. You know what I mean? They're more just fire as many possible and hope to hit what you were aiming for. You know what I mean? And they never do.
Right.
And it's just, if you look at if you were to make a list of all the targets hit or targeted by each side, Ukraine does an amazing job of targeting military targets that have a military objective, planes, like you said, gasoline, fuel, soldiers, stuff like that. And they're not hitting supermarkets, they're not hitting malls, they're not hitting schools, they're not hitting apartment buildings. It's just the difference in the way that each side fights war is just incredible.
Right. Well, and again, is it because they can't aim or don't aim? And I feel like in this case where they hit the center of town, that seems like something they were aiming, at least in the general area, of something they were very much aware that was a
I think it's a little bit of both.
Right.
I mean, they obviously have weapon systems that are accurate that they can pull out to, if they're looking to strike. But I think overall, most of their weapons, especially the older ones, are just, lob them and hope for the best.
Right.
But obviously they do pull out these scare tactics, is what I believe it is. They're trying to break the will of the Ukrainian people, which anybody that knows history and knows war knows how difficult that is to achieve.
Yeah.
I mean, if you saw what the British and the Americans did to Dresden and many cities in Germany, and those people were still ready to fight at the end for their country. I mean, it's almost impossible. You have to do so much to try to break the will of the citizens.
Well, there's
Russia's always stuck in the past.
Yeah, I think there's a direct relation. There's a return on investment to it, where it has to be it's got to be an all or nothing approach. It has to be so brutal that it inflicts fear into everyone. But if you if it stretches out over a period of time, people will just only put up with so much before they find a resolve. And I think that's the miscalculation that they have here, both that they'd have the support of the greater world as much as they have. That I don't think Russia was truly counting on that. I think they were counting on Donald Trump being in office and undermining NATO, if not even breaking it up, and at the very least undermining what we would send to Ukraine to push back on Russia once they attacked, if not slow walking it like he did with the javelins when he was trying to manipulate Zelensky into opening a fake investigation into Biden. So, I think they were counting on that to some degree, but obviously that didn't work out. The question is, are they making more partisans? Remember during the Iraq War, especially, and certainly the Afghanistan War in the very beginning, where we were very aware that the more, we made terrorists every time we killed civilians. There was an awareness of that. And the Obama administration was probably better at anybody, at that point, at focusing on making sure that we keep, like any kind of civilian or collateral damage down, because, there's the sprawling attack, the return on that is that you're just guaranteeing people hate you and are bearing a grudge for decades to come. Because I know how I would feel, even if it was an accident, if a country blew up something near me and my kid was killed or my wife, girlfriend, whatever, what you would carry for a long time. And if you have multiple people like that who already aren't feeling it, that's a recipe for disaster. It does not seem like the Russians factor that in at all. And you think they would have after Afghanistan themselves, because that's exactly what happened to them.
And it's amazing to me that military strategists, for years have thought there was a line that they could achieve where they would literally break the will of the citizens, where they would say, okay, we're done fighting. We don't want to support our regime, whatever, case it may be.
Right.
And it's never, ever happened. What happens is you make these people a tighter knit community.
Right.
That just find a new enemy instead of being mad at their their leader for oppressing them. They're now focused on you for killing their cousin or their the mother or whatever
Right.
it may be in an attack that went wrong, or a targeted person that you thought was a terrorist but really isn't a terrorist, and it turns out you took the wrong action. I mean, it just there's no line where you could do that, I don't think. And like, so you brought up great examples in those two wars, and especially after World War II, where uniforms started becoming not a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it was harder to determine.
Oh,
who was
Vietnam,
the enemy,
Korea, that was always the difficulty, and it always led. And I think America learned that the hard way, as did some of our allies, as did the French in Africa.
Right.
That if you kill somebody and you're not, you might even kill somebody on your own side because nobody's wearing a uniform. That's not how things operate, or that it's just broken down where there aren't distinct sides like there used to be. And you don't even know which side you're fighting on in some of these cases because they're very murky. There are no good players, right? And it in this particular case, it's almost like there was probably something to that in Chechnya for Russia, where they could count on that. There was absolutely nothing they could count on about that in Georgia, which is why the world reacted to it the way it did, and it was a much smaller gain for them. They were not able to take over all of Georgia, even though maybe that was their goal, but maybe not. But with Ukraine, they seem to be falling back into that belief system. And maybe, strategically, this is because Vladimir Putin has never invaded or been involved in a military action in a country with more than 4 million people before.
Just how they can classify this as anything but a disaster after, what did we hear in the first few hours of this war? It was supposed to be a 72-hour operation, and, they're going to be in Kyiv with their line of tanks in no time. And, I mean, look at what's happened. I mean, we're way over 250 KIAs for Russia. I mean, the amount of equipment they've lost, the amount of money they've lost, their economies in the tankers. I saved myself on that one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Tankers is good. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, in the tanker, in the excrement tank.
How they can classify this to their people or justify it in any way as anything but a complete and total failure is beyond me.
Yeah, and at this point, I mean, what are they fighting but a war of bitterness between them and the Ukrainians? Like, just getting increasingly angry that the Ukrainians won't roll over and just take it. That seems to be Tucker Carlson's frustration, right? That seems to be the big upset from a lot of these folks. It's abundantly clear. We got to take a break in a minute, and we'll continue with Boston Brian. I want you to know, Boston Brian does great videos and has really good put together stuff. And like I said, we're building his media empire as best we can. And you can help out by going to patreon.com/Boston Brian. And subscribing there. I don't know what the tiers are, but I'm sure they're all good.
There's actually a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff for each tier. I tried to make it as much. You get as much as I possibly could give you for the amount that you're spending.
Excellent. Well, don't wear yourself out. Remember, the main reason to support Boston Brian is because you want that message to get out there. We in this side of the aisle, and especially in the Democratic world, do not have this giant support structure like the Federalist Society and others who were, our Heritage Foundation, who was paying Rush Limbaugh's salary for years so that stations could effectively have free programming, guaranteeing hours and hours of pay. Or Bain
Capital.
My
call from the Koch brothers.
Right, yeah. Yeah, right. The Soros checks have just never shown up. It's always how it happens. But specifically though, the story of how Bain Capital, which was Mitt Romney's company, going around buying up, liberal stations. That was what, by the way, ultimately killed Air America. Not something internal, but the fact that they were their stations were being bought up and flipped and meant to not turn a profit, which would normally be a violation of their fiduciary duty to their investors. But they don't care because it's sort of like an ad. It's like ad dollars for the tax break they're going to get if they can keep, us from getting, our side from getting an office.
Well, like you always say, just think of what you could do with the budget that Glenn Beck or Bill O'Reilly.
Exactly. And we're not even asking for that. Look
what
we're already doing
with this message that is one
so
of the most
important
fights, I believe, in our lifetime that we could be involved in. And,
that's right.
Getting it out as far and spreading it as far as wide, I think, is hugely important. So
yes, mega worldwide, I would call it. Yes. Let's take a break, and we'll come back with more Boston Brian. You guys can pop over to his Patreon and sign up for that right now. I insist. We'll be back right after this. It's Hal Sparks filling in for Joan Esposito on WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Okay, we're in break, and do you want to do that Team Hochberg live read now?
Team Mahachmubar. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Hal. I appreciate you to the end
it's
of
good.
the earth. I really do.
Yeah, sure. It's lucky it works out. And it's hopefully it's cooling off in your house right about now. I'm not.
I honestly, I might be out of sweat. It's one or the other.
Someone powder
90 seconds.
Thank you. Someone powder Brian. Can we get someone in here?
Yeah.
All right.
I need Don Jr. to sneeze on me.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Yeah, that'll suck up all the water. Right.
And I do hear a little bit of an echo on my side. I hope that's not an issue, and I hope it's just me.
I think it's just you. It might just be something looping in what you got, but we'll.
Yep, no worries. Not a big deal.
Okay. Team Hochberg. This is a longer read.
Have you seen what the $1 billion includes yet? That new aid package?
I have not. No. I just saw the that he's done it. Although I
know there was obviously weapons, humanitarian aid, and for the banking.
Yeah, and they also are talking about how they could transfer confiscated assets, and the way they have to charge them with a crime in absentia and go through the whole process to do that, so that people don't just seize stuff before and just say war crime, and then they just take whatever they want from now on. Like that's the that other countries don't do that, and it just becomes like financial piracy. Okay. I got to do this commercial read for Jones' show.
Hi, Chicago.
10 seconds.
Excellent. Are you sure? I'm sorry.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
If you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance your existing home, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Revolving credit debt increased $17.6 billion in March, the largest monthly increase on record. According to Bloomberg, over 50% of Americans don't have enough cash to cover an unexpected $400 expense, and a record 36% of Americans have more credit card debt than savings. Listeners have been surviving inflation by relying on their credit cards, but your credit card debt isn't going to magically disappear. That's why you need to call Team Hochberg now. Not tomorrow, not next week or next month. Pick up the phone and call now for a free debt consolidation consultation. Team Hochberg will analyze your current situation for free and help you and your family consolidate or eliminate your debt. But they can't help if you don't call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. Team Hochberg has helped thousands of WCPT listeners, but they can't help if you don't call 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. Lower.com, equal housing lender, NMLS 1124061. Oh, yeah.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Filling in today for Joan.
Except that
live from
$400
Chicago.
thing isn't true anymore.
And multimedia personality, Hal Sparks.
Welcome back. I'm here with my dear friend Boston Brian, who rumor has it is from and in Boston, where it's toasty beyond measure, as it is across the country. We'll deal with that later on. I think my favorite story about the Ukrainian thing right now, for me, is the fact that Russia has to park its planes out in the open because it doesn't have hangars. So they're covering the planes with old tires. I'm not kidding. I'm showing the picture of it
Ladas
on screen. Yeah, to protect them from the drone attacks and other stuff, to just have a modicum of defense against the explosives. So they are that is an aerial shot I'm showing on my live stream right now of just old tires.
In that same picture on either the right or the left is a big burn spot where the other plane used to be.
Yes,
burned to the ground.
Yes, right. Yeah, nearby. That is where one of them was hit. That is the exact same airport. And these guys don't have a way. And the idea was, and these are their long range bombers. These are the things that they would keep in the air for long periods of time. Take a lot to service, and they stay up there.
Expensive birds too.
Yes, they are. And so that is their defense measure. That is
what's that going to do? What is that going to do?
That is going to lower the repair time from forever to 27 months if they can get the parts. That's what it's going to do. I'm not kidding. That is exactly That is exactly and I get it. I mean, what are you going to do? What else are you going to do? You got nothing.
I don't know. That's dumber than like the little nets that they put on top of the tanks. It's supposed to stop a 200-pound drone, and you know what I mean.
Well, and the drones. So and that's actually for that was originally for the javelins. So the javelins go over. They have a sensor below them. You know, when they get over there, that says, okay, the tank is 6 feet before here, so it drives the explosives into the actual armor of the tank, and it's part of the process. So what they do is they build a big cage on the top, and the idea is that it tricks the radar into thinking that the tank is 8 feet higher than it is or whatever, and it explodes too early. It doesn't really do enough damage. The problem is they can see that, and it's like, you ever see on like a sniper movie where the guy's always doing little clicks on his optic, where he's like he's just turning it a little bit. Okay, that's all they have to do on the javelin, and just go set it for 2 feet instead of 6, and
like
that's
the guy taking out the dude in the bell tower and Saving Private Ryan.
Right, exactly. Or when somebody's or John Wick shooting through a wall because the guy's standing behind drywall, thinking that that's actually arm. You know, that'll protect him in some way. So pretty fascinating. Obviously, the Russians have stepped up their attacks on civilian areas, but I want to bring up on here too. And I was talking about our dear friend Philip Ittner, who's in Odessa right now. Was on my morning show, the Hal Sparks morning show, Mega Worldwide, which people can check out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I leave off Tuesdays and Thursdays because I have so much research, reading, and idiot video watching to do for this show that I don't know how in the world.
When does your missus get any time with you, Hal?
In between shows, and after. That's why I bug out at 6 o'clock on the nose a lot. I'm just saying for the record. Also, for a little spoiler alert, this Saturday on my radio show, I will be ending the show right on time, like laser on time, because my dear friend Richard Hunter, who I'm going to have on the show as well at some point, who is a funny guy and a great Democrat, smart dude. Anyways, he got tickets to Metallica last week. They do these shows Monday and Sunday, and Hetfield got COVID, and he couldn't do the show on Sunday, so they had to cancel it. So they moved it to this Saturday, but his wife can't go. So he's like, I need to find somebody that will drive down to Phoenix with me from Vegas that I can stand to be in a car with till for 4 hours. So
how much is a flight?
Well, yeah, the reality is we're going together. I'm going. So anyways, he invited me. So we're going to go see Metallica Saturday night. And he has pit tickets. And he's in Kirk's family and friends room. So the last time I saw Metallica where I had family and friends room, I was there as a guest of Trujillo's. And that's where I met Hetfield for the first time. I'm very curious if he remembers our altercation, considering how many times I have spoken of it on the air. If he remembers it, probably. It was great. He's a good dude, a solid guy, and great respect for a dude who fought addiction as difficult as he did and brought himself back from it in an amazing way. And as a guy who wrote some of the most heartfelt, angry music of my childhood, the amount of positivity that guy exudes in life is just it's stunning. It's very exciting. Now,
Metallica will always go hand in hand with high school football for me.
Sure.
The music before the games, getting pumped up for the games, and we used to come out to Metallica when we ran out in the field. And
there you go.
But I haven't been to a good concert since Ozfest, which was years ago.
Well, I'm going to take you to one. I'm going to make my way out to Boston, and I'm taking you to a bunch of shows. That's it. That's, for God's sake. You had to be such a good guy and be on the other coast. That's fine.
That's going to be patreon.com/Boston Brian, so I can afford these tickets to be.
That's right.
Where Hal goes.
That's right. Vice versa. Now, I'm showing up. We got like 4 minutes left in the show, and I want to thank Joan again for letting me fill in for her. It's an honor, and I appreciate it. And Boston Brian, thank you for being with me to ride out this part of it. And I'm going to roll straight into my show right after this. Good times. But in the meantime,
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we got 1 minute. I wanted to show people the map of Ukraine right now, and I've got it up on there. This breakthrough that is happening around Robatnya and all this area, and I'll blow it up, past all these reinforcements. The Ukrainians have broken through the second line in, and that is past the area where the minefields are, frankly. And once they've picked this hole, they just got to work their way through it. And I think what we're seeing here is the beginning of the end. I think that's the biggest sign so far.
Is it me, or do those next lines of defense don't actually spread far enough to be a hindrance?
They do not. You can go around them, and that's the key. Thanks, Boston Brian. Thank you, Chicago. Thanks, Joan Esposito. We'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. Remember, if you're ever confronted with a choice you think is the lesser of two evils, choose less evil. It's that easy.
Thank you, bud. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Excellent.
Good show. I'll talk to you next time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. See ya. Okay. We'll hang.
Another show down. Don't cut.
I have to hang them up because they will start playing the ad stuff through there because they'll forget all about it.
My shot is at 2 shows, no cussing. Like one of those when you get injured at the workplace.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like one of those sits in accident. Right. Yeah. I was just pointing out, and I didn't want to say this on the air, and I thought you were about to, so I was like, bah, 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 when you're saying out the lines. I had said earlier that it looks like the Ukrainians are teabagging the Russians right here. Just.
But what they do have to be careful of is pushing too deep in a singular spot, which you can obviously what would happen. The pincer move that the Russians could do behind them if they were to.
Well, that's what this little area is right here. But the problem is, and I think this is what they're running into, is that Tokmak is so important, and they've already lost Robatnya, that they've got to keep pushing this part. They can't afford to try and venture into the territory to do that pincer move because that means taking people away from the defensive positions around here. And it's fascinating to me, and this is, part of whatever the hell. Maybe this whole area here is the mined area, and I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that they just peppered this whole frigging area with mines and the like. But it seems like these guys moved forward to keep this line back. But if they've started falling back, obviously. After Robatnya, they reinforced in here. You can see these little lines, these little jagged lines, these throw-up lines. But these guys, there were so many. I mean, if you back out, it looks like everybody's there. Like, it's just, look at the amount of troops. And
I saw a lot of videos of Russian soldiers being surprised at how fast the Ukrainians got through the first. The first line of defense. Yeah, the main line of defense that they had, basically.
And it's amazing to me that.
But it was a World War II setup.
Thursday.
It was just it's Dragon's Teeth. It looks exactly like the landing that you'd see on Private Ryan. Sorry to bring that up twice in one show, but that's they think that's their tactics that they're using. Big trenches to stop the tanks, but we have, they had funny tanks in World War II that could get around the trenches. The tanks that fold out the big top, you drive right on top of them.
Build their own bridge.
The British guy invented. They called them the funnies. But I can't think of the guy's last name at the moment. But they were amazing. He built probably like 15, 16 different types of tanks that did different things, bulldozers and, flamethrowers and, like I said, ones that could go down deep in a trench and other tanks would just drive right over it. So it's like this is outdated, just nonsense of defensing right here.
Right. And it's interesting because, like, if you look at here, like these, like I said, this is Robatnya. So they've full on claimed it. Like the Ukrainians have said, we've got this now. They're behind this trench line. It's hard to even argue at this point, interestingly enough, if once you clear this now qualifies as a Ukrainian trench line. Because once you claim these things, you also have that part of it. You can also, if you want, you can shuffle the mines so that even if they move forward and when they go back, they're not in the same spot they were. You know where they are now, but they're different. So
we're not on the air, right?
No.
The Russians have laid a fuck ton of mines.
Yes.
Like just a ridiculous number of mines because that's literally one of their only defenses. You know what I mean? That's what they have. They probably have a huge stockpile of them. So they're just throwing them everywhere and hoping for the best, hoping they're going to take out as many as they can. But it has to be deeply frustrating and just, for the Russian citizens to see the land that they took, you know, the villages that they occupied now being reoccupied by the Ukrainian people.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and it's happened a lot before with bigger cities. I understand that, but it's got to be really frustrating for these, you know, and a lot more difficult for the Russian Ministry of Defense to claim any type of victory whatsoever when you're losing ground that you've already claimed and celebrated in the newspapers back home, and now you have to, you know, somehow hide the fact that you've lost it now because they don't come out and tell their people that.
No. And they have no reason to do it. And by the way, hi everybody. I'm going to roll straight in my show. I'm going to let Brian go in a minute, and I'll set up and kind of do a reset. I'll do a reset of the show and then get going. But I just wanted to continue this conversation because it's good. Wes Webb jumps in here. He goes, the U.S. is not running out of bullets. They're just not selling them to civilians. Yeah, that's another thing you see on the right wing. Like there was this factory that's the Winchester factory that is licensed to, you know, supply arms to the military, and they'd sell the overage. They would automatically, even though they were under license to the government, they would overrun the factory stuff, and then they would sell the overage to civilians on the cheap. And so a bunch of these socialist bullets, I would call them, because you're just buying. Yeah, it's government surplus that never needed to be surplus in the first place. There is no legitimate surplusing of it. For the record, it's made intentionally that way. So, that part of it is that's why Glenn Beck and all these guys are like, this is how they're coming for your guns.
I did see that they were adding the depleted uranium ammunition into the new package.
Yeah, well, that's because of armor, and that's the other thing that, you know, that you in a war, and this is the difference between it. Like if you're wearing, you know, like real armor plating, the depleted uranium stuff cuts through that stuff like butter, and it's.
But I still haven't seen them using. I mean, obviously the Abrams, like I don't know, is it almost counterintuitive because I don't think they'll be using the Abrams as a frontline weapon. So it's like,
no, I think they're using them to hold
necessary
places
right now to be sending that. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not in there in huge numbers. They're not on the front lines going into these towns. So it's like I guess send them so that they have them ready just in case. I don't know. It just seems like
eventually they're
gonna. That's something they could use now to help them right now. That could go in there.
No, and because you're not going to send them in and get them blown up because they're going through minefields. What you'll do is you'll move them into secured areas a little bit back so that anywhere that the Russians would try to take back, if they do a counter offensive kind of thing, you would have munitions in there that would drive them back in a second. The Abrams
all I'm saying is you know, there's a spot in the aid package taken up by the depleted uranium shells that are not going to be of huge use to them at the moment. What I'm saying is, we should replace them sending the uranium shells now for a weapon system that they could use now and be more used on the front lines to help them out at this moment in time, you know?
Yeah, I don't know what the range is on the Abrams in terms of that, if they use them as gunners effectively.
I mean, you can use them as artillery, basically.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, I mean, that would be the start on doing it, and you get some range in there.
You wouldn't be using the uranium shells at that point. You know what I mean? You're not going to just start firing off depleted uranium shells as artillery.
Considering how creative the Ukrainians have been with a lot of this stuff, I wouldn't doubt that there was some secondary thing where they're like, they've got a French or a Finnish vehicle or a gun that can use those shells.
You're exactly right. Just a whole new weapons platform we've never seen before. That's somehow
and they're
depleted uranium shells.
Right, and they're layering them into.
They really are. I know it sounds like hyperbole, but they are absolutely that good. You can look up a bunch of videos of Ukrainian workshops that take in one vehicle and they, you know, it's like a Mazda pickup truck and it goes out as this battle wagon with 50 cals, and you know, it's amazing, really.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the way to do it with the amount of like solid like commercial commuter vehicles, trucks nowadays that you can have a military grade truck that you purchased just on the open market, like a Jeep or any of those. Like those vehicles are so much more robust and handle terrain, and they're commercially cheaper than the military version of them. Anyways, you just buy a bunch of them used. You just send
There's
over
a lot of old Russian trucks like that. On the market for like 20 grand or 25 grand, 15 grand, depending on condition, obviously.
Oh man, I love when Trump talks about the 85 billion and stuff left behind, which is just garbage, nonsense. But
Can I
I'm
ask you
like,
a question before I
yeah,
jump down?
yeah.
What do you think about this whole 14th Amendment argument with Trump and taking him off the ballot?
I think it's completely valid. I think, you know, and in a sane world, that would have been instituted within weeks of January 6th, like any other period in American history. You know, they would have gone, oh, fuck that guy. That would have been the end of it.
Right. No,
But now that, you know, effectively, you know, you've got Dershowitz and you know, his fellow scumbags running around saying this is just a way of like, because the voters will vote for him, that's why they want him taken off. Instead of, no, the point is, the law is, the 14th Amendment has meaning, and that is, if you engage in this shit, you don't even earn the right to be on the ballot to lose, because he's going to fucking lose. I don't care what anybody says. They know it.
I'm scared that if he's not convicted of something and they try that, he's not even been charged with insurrection as far as I know or anything like that. So
right.
I do know it's legally sound, but I just think it might cause more problems than it helps us. And I think it would be more advantageous and more beneficial and more meaningful to us if we just beat the bastard at the fucking ballot box.
I agree.
You know what
I
mean?
I'm fine with that.
More, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we can, and it's not an issue. As a matter of fact, I think it opens up a can of worms. Otherwise, I think what you do is that you, specifically around the documents case, or I guess the Georgia case as well. But if he's convicted of those things, then states can start making the argument that they want him taken off the ballot because he engaged in an insurrection. That's the Georgia case. Or that he's guilty of crimes against the country, aid and comfort, which would be the documents case, and the Georgia case. And so you have multiple reasons why, besides the fact that he's a pussy-grabbing rapist in general, should be reason enough, again, in a sane world. But those two things, if he's convicted of those two things.
Just like an alternate reality. You're talking about the guy that was once the leader of the free world, the most powerful man on all of the planet, in the leader of the United States of America, and the sentence ends was, he's a pussy grabbing thief, con man, cheater,
just rapist, asshole.
Sorry, it's like a different reality than what I'm.
Dude, I've said this before, but nobody gets to skip history. Nobody gets to, you don't get to. No, you're gonna live through history no matter what you think. And for some reason, around the 90s, it seems, a bunch of people thought that history was over. And they were like, we're in cruising speed now.
Right.
There won't be any of this shit. And nobody gets to skip history. And you've got and your best chance of skipping really bad shit is keeping an eye out for it. And that's what we weren't doing. You know, when it came to, I mean, Cheney himself should have been the lesson. But the idea that Trump got anywhere near the levers of power. And again, we're very lucky that he's a failure. That in everything he tries, he's a failure. Thank God. Because I mean, if anybody with half a fucking brain, if it had been a Cheney acolyte, or it had been, if Rumsfeld had the charisma and the money behind him or something like that, or any of the people that were in Bush's cabinet had found their way to like create this kind of bullshit cult of personality, they absolutely would have been able to pull off all this shit.
He's like a Three Stooges con man cheetah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
like someone
in the ways that he
goes like a guy with a sweaty comb over with like a bowler hat, you know, and going, you know, with a cigar. Like it's
amazing how dangerous that turned out to be. It really is, and it's amazing how many people you now look at differently that you didn't look at differently before, you know, politics became so heated and divided, you know, and it's divided a lot of families. It's a lot of people have lost their jobs or left their jobs because of the way their company feels, or, you know, the company feels about them. And, you know, a lot of these people have dug themselves a hole that is really deep in defending Trump and his ways that, like you say, even when you get a win, if you're 6 feet deep in a hole, you know, you still have to get, you're still 6 feet in the hole. You got to get that 6 feet before you even get to, you know, anything above that.
To growth. Right. Yeah. These people are like, any movement is just back to stasis. And that can feel Herculean.
Well, and I really appreciated that graph you pulled up the other, I think it was today or yesterday, showing the U.S. economy and the GDP. and it looked like
Yeah.
a straight line, except for the housing crash in what was it, 07, and then obviously COVID. Other than that, if you drew a straight line to one point to the end, it was pretty steady growth. It looked like where it was supposed to be.
Exactly. Yeah. Nothing's, and again, that's what I mean is like, imagine like any boat ride you take is going to be bumpy at some point if it lasts any length of time. And imagine if each bump took a month, and the trip back to shore would just be filled with like stories of apocalyptic ends. A boat's going to capsize. We're all dead. You know what I mean? All that shit, right? We're all doomed. There's no way out. Right. And then ultimately, if you really look at it, like, well, the water was like, but it wasn't like like the stories you're fucking telling sounds like we were in a typhoon. You're fucking deadliest catch, and it was a way bigger than the boat, and it was like the day after tomorrow, or fucking.
They
whatever.
abandoned ship, and they could just stand up in the water because it's not that deep.
Yeah, right, exactly. And there's a lot of that in the. Oh, nice. Ali Osher followed you on Patreon. That's great.
You guys are the
people
best.
jumping in.
I say it a lot, and I mean it with everything that I have. Your chat is just some of the most fantastic people.
Yeah,
they're
good
so
people.
loving and caring and devoted and dedicated, and I don't know. They're just great people. So
hey, man, you put all you got to do is make people's lives.
I can think of a list of names right now of people in your chat that I can thank, which is funny to me that I know them all.
By chat names. I know, me too. It's fascinating.
I can't wait to put a face to these people. That's part of my Patreon. I'm sorry, I don't want to be a shameless plug, but as a part of the Patreon, I'm doing monthly Zoom, sometimes twice a month. So I'll finally get to see all your beautiful faces, and we can learn a lot about each other and talk democracy, and talk politics, and talk now behind his back. And,
sure, that's totally for that. Absolutely.
But no, really, thank you, and Hal, thank you for this, for the privilege of being here with you, and
hey, more the merrier, man. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. And I feel like there's such a gap on our side of voices that we just there is no loss in this. I find it ironic and a little gross that there's any sort of competitive stuff on our side, and it might just be five dogs fighting over a bone, but there's a whole other carcass right there. Right, like, why the fuck? And especially nowadays with all the outlets and all this stuff, shit, and the fact that people can watch your stuff whenever, even if we were all on at the same time, I'd say, hey, rotate live on all of my, our friends on this. If you want to watch them live and you want to be part of the live chat there, and if you don't want to be on mine, watch it later. Totally cool. The important thing is the message.
It's such an amazing feeling to know that you built your platform off the people that enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
And it's so, I know, like, when people send you $2 or $3 on Venmo, like, it's so rewarding to feel like people appreciate the time and energy, and like you said, the reading, and it's not like I was born with any of this knowledge, so you got to read and study and make sure you get your facts right.
Make sure you're caught up, especially when shit's like, when new weird stuff is dropping all the time. Like, let me give you an example. Is it like, I to be completely honest, every so often, because my show, people watch it other times than when I'm live, and you experience this as well. And you might get a reaction to somebody online or whatever. But I'll occasionally get a Venmo from somebody who, is watching the show and, later. And they're like, okay, I'll help you out or whatever. They'll do something. Even if it's like $5 or something. And there have been multiple times when I have teared up a little bit. I'm dead serious. I'm like, literally, it caught me right at the moment. And I was like, and not because like, oh, I got $5, thank God. But because that person felt like I added enough value to what their experience and their knowledge base and their situation that they felt that was worth their time. To not just send a message or send money or to support the show, but just, I'm aware of all the steps, that lead up to that, right?
Exactly.
Right. Just even trying to figure out how that shit works.
I have an issue not asking for help, but, that whole, promoting myself type thing is still really awkward for me. I don't quite understand that part, and so you're gonna have to help me get through that. But like you said, just the feeling of knowing that somebody at a random moment was watching your video and agreed with what you were saying so much that they were like, all right, I want to help this person out. I want to help this person grow his platform. I think it's that important. Is very touching. It really is. So.
Tarrant says, I feel seen. Absolutely. And Templeton and others, like, you know who you are. I like everybody who does that. It's just great. I used to have a thing, and you'll do this. Like, I have that thing where if I've got this open on 2 channels so I can go back and forth between 2 sets on OBS, so that sound, I have to turn off the little alert sound because it'll play.
All right, Hal, I have to know, how are you looking so high in your room right now? Like, why does it look like you have screens on the ceiling sometimes when you're looking up?
Oh,
because
I do.
How big are your screens?
No. So, okay, right here, I have a screen right here.
You're like, read the chat on the ceiling.
Yeah. So I have an old monitor that was kind of garbage, but it will work portrait. It'll turn long ways, and so I put the so that I can see where you are, which will be about eye level and with the camera, so it's a little more natural. Until I'm dealing with the chat, I put it up here. And so I'll look up at the chat, and there's guy like looks like I'm looking at the sky.
I'm always
but
like, what the hell is he looking at? Like, I feel like you used to have a whole room of green screens in your chat.
I'm not there yet. I'm not at Glenn Beck level yet, and I'm absolutely I have absolutely maxed out my video card on my computer, because sometimes I start it up and only 3 of the monitors will wake up, and I have to go like turn it off and turn it back on and do re-inputs on it, and then go to the the display settings in my thing and wake it back up, because it's like
the funny thing is, if you look in the background of all of these like popular shows, your popular show, I guarantee a lot of them like that. It's all a rigged, a guy for a duct tape.
Oh my God!
Couple,
it looks
screws here and there.
Yeah, my studio looks like Doc Brown's dog food machine. But it works, and I keep trying to like improve on it piece by piece. But I'm like ashamed that analogy is so fucking good, but it's absolutely true.
At some point, you're gonna have to post a picture of your setup from like what it looks like you walking in your room.
Oh dear God! Look, dude, I have right on my desk. I have a screw gun and the fart gun.
Machine in a while.
I have the fart. Yeah, I have the screw gun and fart. I have I got just like a buck knife that I need for cutting wire.
Just in case Johnny Million acts up.
Yeah, absolutely. Just come on, you. I have like 3 sets of headphones as backup, 2 plugins because I've had so many fucking fails. I've got if my other stuff doesn't work, I have like a handheld fart machine just in case. It's just nuts. I like the amount of stuff.
Like,
I
I'm
have
ready
to
for
have.
the rubber chicken. Where's the rubber chicken? Somewhere.
Hold on.
No, don't do it.
Yeah, hold on. Stay where
He
you
pulls
are.
one out.
Now, I have a small one. I have a small one, and I put it in the hands of Glenn from The Walking Dead. This is Glenn from The Walking Dead choking his chicken. This is stupid. I love this so much. I couldn't believe like how this like it just fit in his hands when I put it in there.
It was made
and I
for
was
it.
like, this is And I got this like as a gift because Glenn was my character on Walking Dead. I really loved him, and once they killed him, I was like, "Fuck this joint."
You abandoned the show.
Yeah. But yeah. Oh,
I've lost at least.
By the way, that doesn't even count. You want to wait? You want to see the horror of it? Hold on one second. The other the fucking recording studio, like my microphone, the other computer, which is nearly dead, which is the one we're trying to replace, because sometimes it just turns itself off, whatever the fuck. And
good.
Yeah, and then there's all the books and stuff, and this is my kid, and there's my other kids, the Lab Rats kids, and all that stuff, and then there's my original Luke Skywalker on his Tauntaun that I've had since I was 11 or whenever the fuck that came out. Trying to say what else can I point out that's not gross or weird. Yeah. Okay, so that's right there. So it's not even like, understand how much space I'm dealing with. Like, this is the green screen is. Yeah, that's it.
No,
it's right there.
I'm in the same boat here.
Oh yeah, I could tell. Oh yeah, we're all squashed. Do you still have the Captain America shield? Do I have I have 3 of them. I have. You're goddamn right. So not only do I have.
How dare you ask me that?
Yeah. Not only do
I got
have
one for you and me.
yeah, not only do I have the original, like the regular clean one that they, but I have the Winter Soldier bluish one, which I like a lot. They made a like a stealth model, remember, that's painted blue for that one. But I also have the Endgame destroyed.
Oh, that's cool though.
This is the one he was holding with his broken arm, in you know, which he cinched his arm back together, in that. So yeah, I still all right.
See, I'm one of those. I'm one of those weird people. I'm watching like stuff about Winston Churchill, not Captain America.
Well, I have to say, hold on one second. I gotta make sure this doesn't fall off.
Because I always miss the first one in the series, and then by the time I get into it, there's already like 2 or 3 movies come out, and I'm always behind.
Don't worry about it. Start back. I will tell you this. Like, I started out as an Iron Man fan in general because I believe the overall story, by the way, of the Avengers storyline from the very first Captain America movie, if you follow the timeline through the end, is very much like the storyline in Blade Runner, which is man and science against God, giving us a limited shelf life. That the idea that God can pick the day you dies, and the fight in manhood and humankind against that is the essence of all progress and stuff. That's what it's always been. And so Thanos, the idea that he could just make up the day you die like that, is the allegory of the whimsical God. He's Tyrell in this situation, giving you a 4-year lifespan, and the replicants hate him for it, right? And then some people he gives a longer life. Rachel, maybe even Deckard is lives forever. They don't have a limited life. So the story is like, how dare you? And it's a fight back against it. So in the 2 cases, if you really boil down to what it is, and even though eventually, Thor being a demigod, which is another conversation because he gets fat and then he's still using electricity, and that's still the invention of mankind's new era of technology, was man's harnessing of lightning, which is interesting. So as soon as humans brought lightning, Thor, to work with them and be on their side as opposed to be against them in terms of, lightning strikes because God's playing fucking bowling in the skies or whatever, which is what they used to think. Once you do that, then that's the beginning of the industrial age. And Iron Man represents the industrialization, mankind using machine to further his life, protect himself against the elements, and protect himself against the whim of the gods. In this idea.
So do you think that's the start of the whole story there? Because I do like the Iron Man movies. I thought
so is Captain America.
The ones that I did watch.
Yeah, so Captain America, I believe Captain America First Avenger is the best Avengers movie of all the ones, because it's the purest message. Because whereas Iron Man is an accidental hero hoisted by his own petard. He's almost forced by his circumstance to become better than himself. And he recognizes the damage that he's done. He's a dick, and he sells arms to awful people. Right. And then it bites him in the ass, and he pretends he doesn't know. And then he's confronted with it, and he almost dies, and he changes his mind. Everybody else has a similar take like that. And never mind the fact that, like, the storyline they give the Wakandans is the most, like, ridiculous. It's just an act of violence against everybody else in Africa. I don't get it at all. I don't know why that's like, I don't know why people are applauding that. Like, oh yeah, we built a dome city. What? Okay, so Black Panther's what? The Trump of Africa? Never mind. Like, that bugged me. But that said, Captain America becomes a hero well before he gets the powers. And he allows the experiment to go there, and there's no guarantee it's actually going to work. We know it is because we know the character happens. But back then he didn't. He was the first to try this, and the only experiment before him was Red Skull, and it burned all his skin off. So they're not going to necessarily, and they were going to pick one guy and try it, and they've got to pick the nicest and sort of expendable guy they could find. And this guy, the moment it becomes the best story, is the grenade. So I don't know if people have seen it. And spoiler alert, but there's a moment when he's in basic training, and they've got the kind of Benjamin Button version of Chris Evans. He's really tiny, he weighs 119 pounds or something like that. It's really well done. But they go, Tommy Lee Jones's character says, wars aren't won, they're won with guts, or they're won with guts. and he throws this grenade. He goes, "Grenade!" And everybody runs except for Steve Rogers, who, at 119 pounds, dives on top of it and tells everybody to get away. And everybody's, like, all the other people who were up for being the Captain America, which they don't know, rise up from behind the car they hid behind or whatever. Everybody ran for cover except him. And he was willing to give his life, as small as it was, in that moment for everybody. It didn't matter. He was there, and the whole line, I don't want to kill
was
Nazis.
it a test or a dud or something like that?
It was dud. It was a dud. But he didn't know that. And he laying there, he goes, "Is this a test?" Like, he doesn't know. But that's the point. He becomes Captain America.
Test. Jesus Christ.
Oh, it's fucked up. But again, they're picking, they've got one dose of this shit, and they don't know if it's going to work. And they got to pick one person to do it. And they were going to pick the biggest bully dickhead in the thing because he was physically stronger. And it was his willingness to instantly, without thinking, sacrifice himself to save people around him, even in a non-war setting, that made him, his character right for this. Because the idea is that it makes you stronger, but it also it exacerbates your character traits. So if it makes a good man better, kind of like Freemasonry, and it makes bad men
Have
worse.
you ever seen We Were Soldiers?
Yes.
With Mel Gibson.
Uh-huh.
Screw him, but great movie. That reminds me a lot of that, where you know, they were doing live training before they even were in there, and the guy had to save his buddy there.
Yeah, and that wasn't that uncommon. And, you know, when you have accidents or that happen, you know, look at the story of First Man. You know, the you know, the guys who were killed in the Apollo mission. They but or Gemini, I think it was. Point being though is that point, that's where he and he's very different from everybody else because again, you know, whatever. The backstory they give on Bruce Banner is very small, that he's fucking around they eliminated all the altruistic thing about his wife died and because he couldn't lift the car off her and he thought, you know, somebody was able to do that. So if I could just figure out what that is and turn it on, and then he accidentally turns himself into the Hulk and his anger turns him into whatever. That they just kind of threw that out the window and made up a whole other side story of it. Everybody else is there because of their own fuck up, essentially. Even Scarlet Witch has a body count by the time she loses her accent, and you know, that goes
conservatives hate body counts, just so you know. They don't like a girl with a high body count.
Right, yeah, that's right. Girls with a high body count, that's a different thing. According to what's her name, Penny Pawnee, whatever, the redheaded chick who's always defending Andrew Tate. Never mind. Anyways, we watch way too much right-wing shit. Anyways, so the point is,
the TikTok chick,
I think, is she on TikTok? I don't know. She's on other stuff.
Podcast, and she's the lamest. Like, she's against feminism and all that chick.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure there are more than just her, but I think we're talking about the same person.
Like, she's blown up basically a little bit.
Yes.
You know, right.
Because she was defending Andrew Tate, but that's another thing. Anyways, back to why Captain America is like the actual purest hero in that situation. And again, it's that moment of sacrifice. And the fact that he had already made that sacrifice before he ever became, and he volunteered to do something that might not work to try and make this forward. And again, this goes to the whole science against God theme that is in Blade Runner and that is in the run of these, which is God shouldn't whimsically be able to turn off human life at 98 years old or whatever it is and say no more. And humanity always raging against that. And this is an allegory for that. And that's why at the end, he snaps back in Endgame at Thanos and unsnaps him, because he builds technologically a glove that can handle it even if his physical person can't, and he's willing to sacrifice himself like myriads of humans before have done this, right? So I love that aspect of the story, and the Captain America part of it just won me over time because there's no smarm to it at all, and there's real struggle, and there's also real heartbreak because he doesn't, you know, he gets to go back and spend time with her, you know, after, you know, when he gets to go back in time or whatever. But in the real thing, he goes through her death twice and wakes up and everybody he knows is dead, like all that kind of stuff. It's just, I just love that part of it. So that really caught on with me, and I love how, you know, in loving that, I can reclaim all the patriotic imagery that a lot of these fuckers run off with and mishandle and turn into something ugly. And I don't like that either. I think we have every right to to put ownership on the flag and appreciate what
I was
it means.
just gonna say I'm starting to call out my family members that have not stupid. I mean, but different colored flags that they think represent different things, and it's like, listen, would the U.S. military fly that in a time of war if they were? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't fly that flag. They'd fly the American flag. It's supposed to be a certain way with certain colors, a certain amount of stars, a certain amount of stripes. So let's get back to that and stop.
Some respect.
Stop stealing our
imagery,
our love for
iconography,
turn it into something evil.
Hey man, we got nothing to complain about. Imagine what the Tibetans feel like when the Nazis got a hold of their stuff. So that like.
Well, don't worry. He flipped it like a couple degrees, so he made it different.
Yeah, it's like the horse cruise. They don't call it. It's the horse cruise or something like that. The hook cross, right? They don't even call it the swastika. The swastika is actually an Indian word.
Right.
Because if you listen,
he just took it, flipped it, turned it just slightly, put it on so it was a point and didn't end on the flat side, changed the color of it, put a red flag behind it, and he was good to go.
Right. Or added color.
He knew red was it had bold imagery type, mindset to it, back.
Absolutely. Well, I'm obviously aware of that. And my particular little icon that I made is as much a reminder to me, in wearing it or looking at it or having it around as it is, to show other people what I think or feel or if they even understand it. And it's important. It's one of those things where I'm aware of the power of that iconography, and that's why I don't give it away lightly. So Sanskrit.
We should do a shirt trade. I'll send you a Boston Brian one. I'll take a.
I'm for it.
Box all day.
Yeah. What size do you wear?
Large.
Of course you do.
I tried saying it like regular.
Lodge. Lodge. Gotcha. Okay.
No, that's a lodge.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Yeah, it's totally different.
It's
You're
like
right.
the difference between khakis and khakis.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say I was going to
bring
that.
One starts your car, one you wear his pants. Khakis and khakis.
Khakis and khakis. Oh,
that's no difference.
That's weird. Car keys and khakis. I don't know how you overlap those.
And khakis.
Okay.
That's our.
All right. Khakis sounds like a salve for your penis, but I'm just going to leave it there.
I was hoping not to end on that note.
That's okay. You can't not. All right. Anyways, on that note, I'm absolutely going to send you a merch package at some point. We got.
What about you? What size you got?
I'm small, obviously. Right. I'm diminutive, but I also I'm at the age in a man's life where tight-fitting clothing keeps you honest. I can't let myself go.
If I had your arms, I'd show them off too. For Christ's sake.
Oh, it's fucking boom. It's working. So I'm doing all right.
Anyways, you're fucking great, dude.
You're fantastic. We're gonna hang sometime when I get to the East Coast. We'll figure it out. I don't know how, but it's gonna happen. And when we do,
I'll be on the West Coast before you come here. So I'd love to, honestly, if it's possible, whatever, catch up for a. I know.
Hey, I mean, if you have any interest in coming out around the Sexy Liberal show that we're doing at the Saban in October.
Yep.
Maybe if you're out around that time, I could do a live stream from LA while I'm there. At the same time, we could do that together or something in the same room or whatever. I can scrounge us up a studio or something. That'd be fun.
Oh, you're the best, dude. Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love to at least shake your hand, get to say what's up. And
I insist.
It's weird talking to somebody a lot and feeling like you know them, but you've never seen them face to face.
Yeah.
That type.
Right. Yeah. You've never seen me standing up. Trust me, I'm a full functioning human being. I don't have rollers below.
No, the cat cam. Like one time you did the cat cam, and I was like, oh, he does have legs.
That's right. There's his shoes. Right. Yeah, I'm for it. We'll make it happen.
Well,
thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. Your time is very important. It's the one thing you can't get back in this life. So
that's right.
For you to share it with me is very touching.
My pleasure. And I think everybody, we're all in agreement.
Thank you, Chad.
Across the board. So thanks, brother. Okay.
Thanks,
See you later. Okay.
Have a good night.
Bye.